Ahoy, fellow hotboxers.
And welcome aboard the Joy of Trek, an alternative podcast exploring the identical universes and dilithium crystals of Star Trek, all of it. I'm Kaki.
I'm Kay.
And out in the Vasquez Rocks is your chief engineer, Greg.
Together we're on a mission through the shoddy bandages of Star Trek to find the Lazaruses in every corridor and the excellence in every episode.
Even the terrible beards, Judgy.
Because every episode must be someone's favorite, and it might as well guess.
So fight yourself for all eternity and join us as we spin into the Joy of Trek. Hello, everyone. Can you guess which one we're doing this?
Welcome, good listeners.
This
Just
week?
look around you.
Just look around you. That's right.
We're doing the alternative factor. That's the one.
First aired March 30th, 1967. Written by Don Ingalls, directed by Gert Oswald. Yeah, this is from like the tail end of season 1 of Star Trek.
Yes.
The first season of Star Trek ever to grace people's televisions.
Episode 27 or 20 or whatever you want to call this. Like, there's a little bit of discrepancy that's going on in which episode it is. I guess it depends on if you like production order or airing order or...
There's no good answer, unfortunately, because this is the production order, which you'd assume is, the canonical way it was expected to be. That's not completely how television worked at the time.
Yeah, that's the way that Wikipedia orders it, at least. It calls it episode 27, so...
Yes, that's right, because it was aired the 27th. Right. But then this DVD box set uses the production order, and that one uses a... And it gets wilder than that when you had double episodes, like DS9's Season 4 started with a two-parter.
Uh-huh.
Now, does that count as 401 and 402? And is therefore The Visitor, is that 403? It's the second episode that people watched, but it came after a two-parter as a one-part movie.
It was brought as a one-parter. Okay, yes. And of course, you've got the double-parters of that first, Next Generation tended to do, which split its two-parters over, one's over the season break and one's over the end of...
Which, that's not a terrible way. At least that doesn't mess with your numbering as badly.
True,
but yeah, it goes all over the place. But so this time, that's why it's kind of important to say it is the alternative factor. And it's from...
It should be well in our comfort zone because it's not a well-beloved episode.
Oh, isn't it? What? Well, why don't you tell the listeners at home what happens in this episode?
Oh, the Enterprise investigates a state phenomenon.
Phenomenon.
On a planet. Phenomenon. Yes, it's like they do tend to send phenomenon quite a lot in this episode.
There's one word that they say even more. We'll see if you can. No, but it comes close.
Antimatter, no.
Still no.
Oh, okay.
We'll get there.
All right. So yes, they investigate a strange phenomenon on the planet where there was none, there is now life form.
A
strange, schizophrenic appearing man is invited aboard the Enterprise and asked to explain what this strange gravity-defying phenomenon is that has taken place not just throughout the sector, but throughout all sectors.
Keep going.
Enterprise is thrown under the bus by Federation Command and told to solve the problem. This is done eventually by...
Out the little hat. Can your friend do this? Well, looky here. Sorry.
Yes. The situation eventually resolved by inflicting eternal torment on a split personality.
Okay, let me see if I can do this. Let me see if I can do your thing, which is to be completely accurate and yet totally useless to new listeners, and then, the chief can come in and actually do it, right? So I think this is an episode of a terrible failure to delegate on everyone's part.
Okay.
And we see, Kirk being terrible at delegation. We see that he learned it from Starfleet, which is also terrible at delegation. And yeah, that winds everybody up in way more trouble than they needed to be because,
No, it was not really a lot of trouble. I mean, yes.
I mean, the universe could have ended, but...
but that's like in the daily business. But yes, I mean, Kirk is terrible at delegation on a good day.
Yeah.
That's the whole primary bridge crew plot thing. That's a running theme throughout all of Star Trek.
I know, but it's good when they work together more, isn't it?
Also, no red shirts die in this episode.
Yeah. That's something that a lot of people remarked on. Hey, Chief, before we get too far into this episode, what actually happens for the listeners at home?
Investigating the cause of a massive galaxy-wide disruption in space, the Enterprise finds a mad scientist who claims he's being pursued by a hideous being.
Generally reviled, as I believe, not giving it too much credit.
Oh.
Zach Hanlon of the AV Club, 42 years after its initial debut, gave the episode a C- rating, describing the plot as baffling, unrewarding, and poorly paced. A ranking of every episode in the original series by Hollywood.com placed this episode 77th out of 79, which is roughly in the same ballpark as Den of Geek, who ranked it at the 6th worst Star Trek original series episode.
So, do they give any sort of reason why it's considered so bad?
Not in these reviews, but I've read a few other discussions about the matter. It's like it goes against a lot of its own established canon already.
Oh no!
So it's already been established
Star Trek
that
violating canon?
Antimatter annihilation is the power source of the Enterprise. It's already been established at this point. So why there's suddenly this weird, everybody acting all weird about antimatter and like ascribing its properties which entirely make no sense.
Yeah.
Plus also dilithium crystals, which are now apparently power source. No, they're not. They don't power the ship. They manage the ship, as far as I'm aware. But, you know, they manage
this is nitpicky. Anyone can pick some nits. That's totally fine.
There's plenty of nits to pick, right.
Are there structural problems I'm sort of prompting here, just in case?
Structural problems. Well, one of the things is like probably the reason that a lot of fans hate it is because Shatner gets out-hammed by another actor.
Yeah. Oh, I've got a story about that. I'll tell you that in a minute. But what else?
Oh, I think I'm running towards the end of my research.
Okay, so...
Okay, the alternative factor was written by CNET, ranked as the 9th worst episode of all Star Trek.
Wow.
Based on rankings between an audience and discussion hosts at 50th Anniversary Trek Convention in Las Vegas.
So, okay, this episode is a weird one because I actually remember parts of it.
Yeah.
In the way that I remember some really old episodes of Doctor Who, which means I may have seen it when I was a kid.
Right, possible, yeah. Reruns.
And in particular, like the ending of someone who seems like a decent person being stuck with an adversary just fighting to the death forever and no one can help them.
Yeah.
And we're just moving on from that. And that's just always going to be true for the rest of time.
Yes.
It's terrifying.
Oh, absolutely.
It's absolutely terrifying if you take it the least bit seriously. That's just a horrible universe to live in. And even as I was watching it again, like this ranks up there with like the newest remake of Fantastic Four at the time of this recording.
Yeah.
And even the Power Rangers film of a few years ago.
Yes.
Where
finally, after 10,000 years.
After 10,000 years, I'm free. Time to conquer. Where starting to watch it, I couldn't figure out why people thought it was so bad until I got 2/3 of the way in. And then I went,
Oh, that's why?
That's why.
Okay.
Like Fantastic Four and Power Rangers are both really excellent films as they start. They're adventurous. They're a little bit scary. The Fantastic Four deals with all sorts of body horror. They're fantastic acting and characterization. Then it takes a fucking nosedive, and you have no idea why it's doing this.
Okay.
And I sort of had the same experience here, but we got it recommended to us by a friend of the show. So let's find out why they thought that this was an episode worth discussing.
I'm interested in hearing it. Sorry, I was going to go somewhere else.
That sounds so sincere.
No, yeah, I was going to say something else entirely.
Okay, what were you going to say?
I wasn't entirely sure where.
It's the podcaster technique. You just open your mouth and expect some dope shit to come out.
You realize that you actually didn't have anything prepared to say. So yes, no, I genuinely love hearing from our listeners, and especially why they enjoy a particular episode. And I'm really curious to hear about this one.
Saved. Well done, Kay.
Thank you.
The alternative factor was recommended by Kaleb, who said, Listen, I'm aware this episode is definitely a strangely paced, scatterbrained mess. Though I'll say its worst and best sin of it is Lazarus's facial hair. Really, Lazarus as a whole sums up my feeling about this episode: meandering, accidentally comical, and strangely poignant. Hey, yeah. The first 5 minutes, I'm always waiting in suspense for the appearance of Lazarus's awful beard and over-the-top scream as he falls down, because I can't help but laugh every time. And while there are certain parts that are very confusing the first time watching, as well as several bits that drag on too long, there's also a lot of fun lines and good performances to keep me enjoying myself. The episode also has one of my favorite one-off crew members of the whole show, Lieutenant Charline Masters.
Oh, yes.
Yes, me too! who I find really charming and professional when she's on screen. Plus, I love Lazarus' sparkly little outfit. Yes, also agreed.
True.
It's an episode of big swings, trying to deal with total non-existence should the Enterprise fail, time travel, alternate universes, and pulling the bait and switch over which Lazarus poses the real threat. And I'm sure there were cleaner ways to pull it off, but I do know that in the end, after Lazarus stays to fight the other him for eternity in between universes, I really feel the heaviness behind Kirk's "for you and me, but what of Lazarus? What of Lazarus?"
What of Lazarus? It's like, is that a reference to something?
No idea.
Is it a reference to the biblical Lazarus? It's like...
Yeah, I kind of think not.
No.
It's not the vibe that I get.
No.
I find it a really compelling episode, though I can definitely see why it's disliked by a lot of people, especially if they only watch it the one time. That's the thought that stands out to me the most. I like and appreciate this episode more and more with each rewatch, which I think it deserves credit for, even if it'll never be my top episode of all time. Okay, absolutely nailed it, Kaleb. Bit on the long side. I think at one time we asked to keep it to 2 tweets, and gosh, this went over that. But when it comes to, how we ask our listeners, find an episode that you probably like more than most other people.
Oh, this is absolutely right up there.
Kaleb, this is amazing, and I'm so happy that it got recommended because yes, I got to enjoy this as well. So shall we warp into the episode?
No, I don't think we have any warp course to do.
Oh yes, that's right. Do you have any warp cores?
No, nothing egregious. No.
No?
No.
Really?
No.
Did you not even? I'll even cue it up for you.
No, I'm fine. No, Shax.
That's not how antimatter works. No.
Well, I already vented that for a little bit of plasma.
All right. Well, let's go.
Well, Mr. Spock?
Yay.
Very typical, Captain. Iron silicon base, oxygen, hydrogen atmosphere.
That sounds right.
Largely arid, no discernible life, no surprises.
Okay.
No
Oxygen,
surprises, he
hydrogen.
says.
Oxygen, hydrogen, atmosphere.
Thank you for getting that.
That's very dangerous, very explosive.
Uh-huh.
Slight spark, boom.
Any kind of percentage. If those are the 2 major components, we need about 20% oxygen in order to breathe, and then they're clearly breathing it. And anything that's the next greatest portion of an atmosphere being hydrogen is a terrible idea.
Yes, that would be very, very dangerous.
But yeah, he thinks it's absolutely unremarkable, says Mr. Spock, on the bridge with just Kirk and Uhura, who gets basically nothing to do except repeat herself a few times.
No, and sitting on a very uncomfortable chair reaching out over the console.
Yeah, well, ergonomics are not the Enterprise's strong suit.
No. Also, I noticed that Kirk's chair is kind of loosely attached because it shakes quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And I love how, Spock's main instrument that he looks through is positioned such that he can't use it from his chair.
No, he has to stand up, but it does give us a nice view of his ass, but,
And Kirk, too. Hey, Spurk followers, has anyone hypothesized that maybe that Kirk ordered some design modifications to make his first officer, can you move that visor just back a bit so he gets up a bit more often? Could you...
So yeah, that's actually an interesting question. I mean, I'm sure there's a reason for this, but Spock is the first officer, so that makes him commander?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, lieutenant commander maybe.
I don't know the exact rules.
Yeah,
but the executive officer, I don't know that it's necessarily tied to a particular rank, or that it even has to be the highest ranked officer in a given chain of command. Same with captain.
Right.
Whoever's in charge of the ship at a given time should be addressed as captain so that everybody knows who it is. Mm. But even if there's somebody of higher rank in the room, that doesn't mean they get to...
Yes, I believe that means that when a captain, who actually has the rank of captain, comes on board, they get bumped up to Commodore or something, just in the form of address, because there can only be one captain.
Oh, wow.
So you can't call... Yeah.
So when Admiral Kirk, in the motion picture, came aboard the Enterprise and took over from Captain Decker and gave him a field demotion to commander, that was just a real fuck you. That was just completely unnecessary. Oh, wow. Kirk is a jerk.
We're having shirts printed, by the way, so... Well, my other half was talking about it the other day, so...
Oh, wow. This isn't even coming out of our Patreon contributions, guys. So they're all over a completely fucking boring planet, and Kirk goes, well, whatever.
And suddenly, course for Starbase 200.
He's ready to get out of there.
And suddenly, mind blown, space effects.
Okay, we've got to talk about these special effects.
Yes.
Because it's a bunch of shaky cam.
Yes.
And there's an
A starfield projection.
Just a
like,
starfield projection of, like, I think it's the Trifid Nebula, something like that.
No idea. It kind of looks a bit like an eye-ish thing.
Were you into it? This special effect?
Well,
You can say no. I'm not going to be mean.
It was fine until they started doing the newspaper spinny thing with it.
Okay, that one I got into a little. Yeah, that one was tricky as well. Until I realized what they were doing, that it was about a transition,
Right? Yeah.
from universe to universe, and they just did their best. I thought, like, it really struck me.
Okay.
Right, just the fact that it's so weird that, you know, reality fades in and out while everything's sort of going wibbly wobbly and spacey wacy, and you just see this, and it's so motionless, and it's just, you know, it's a great way to visualize the madness of something that's impossible to comprehend.
Well, yes, that's essentially what they're saying as well. It's like,
What my instruments read is totally unbelievable, Captain. Twice, for a split second each time, everything within range of our instruments seemed on the verge of winking out.
Yep. And
they said, like, that's impossible.
Kirk says that to a lot of people. In this case, he says,
I want facts, not poetry. I have given you the facts, Captain.
that is the start of my love affair with the word facts in this episode.
Well, they are used loose and fast and loose.
Fact and loose.
Yeah.
Fact and loosed. Is that it?
Fact and lubed. Fact unlubed,
The
yes.
entire magnetic field in this solar system simply blinked.
And, like, that's impossible. They're dealing with something that's fundamentally impossible, that within, as far as their sensors reach, things just briefly stopped existing and then started existing again.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm so into this. It's a huge swing, you know, especially because it doesn't get satisfyingly resolved. But still, like, that's... Oh, God, I find it so thrilling when Star Trek does this, because it's very rare. Something that's just incomprehensible and terrifying.
Yes, and we have to deal with it.
Because the ethos of Star Trek is that everything has an explanation. and
Right.
can be understood.
I mean, this kind of has. You know,
Right, yeah.
But we just don't know it yet. We haven't figured it out yet. And we haven't even actually been exposed to it. This is just the first symptom of it. It's just
Yeah.
a little rippling effect. Because now on the planet there is a life form.
Yes, that wasn't there before. And
Exactly.
once again, Kirk questions the competency of his officers.
First officer, yes.
You just did a complete life survey 5 minutes ago. How's it you're just picking it up now?
The Federation has lost a bet with the Romulans, and they have to go imperial measurements for a year.
Yes, because we're talking about Fahrenheit. Oh,
98.5 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about roughly the way how hot it feels in here right now.
is that? Yes, it's.
Oh, it's not. It's barely 80, low 80s.
We are Northerners. Our blood
It
is thick. We're not built for this kind of heat.
To mid 80s is considered high. So yes.
So finally, Kirk is convinced that his officers, of whom he speaks to only one, know what they're doing.
Yes, because Kirk has.
I've considered all the alternatives. My best guess is it could be a prelude to invasion.
He's only investigating. Okay, credit star. La da 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 la 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 la. And then he's in Vasquez Rocks, which is still a very popular filming location.
Yes.
Have you ever been to Vasquez Rocks?
I have not. No.
Chief, have you ever been to Vasquez Rocks?
Been to the LA area a couple times. I have not been to Vasquez Rocks, though. It's just a little bit farther out of the way than when I've gone there for what I've been going there for. So it looks really beautiful. I feel like I've been there just in everything I've seen it in.
Oh.
Yeah. I think it's like one of the primary choices for that location is because it is within a certain distance of Hollywood, which means that they don't have to pay the actors a traveling stipend. It's considered local, and therefore they don't have to be compensated. They don't have to be compensated for travel time.
Oh, and they don't get
stuff
hotel
rooms.
rooms.
Exactly. That's exactly the reason.
Wow. Well, this episode I was really aware of just what it's like to work on a television budget, right? And what an expensive show, actually. This must have been. You've got a lot of background actors. They've all got costumes.
Yeah.
A lot of them have lines. This is a busy show, just not with most of the regular cast. Like James Doohan is absent, despite the fact that so much of this takes place in ostensibly engineering. We don't see the main engineering set. We don't see the chief engineer.
Maybe he had a side gig.
Maybe
he had a swimming competition to go to.
Wait, was he a swimmer?
Ooh,
James Doohan?
I don't know.
Might have been.
I think he was. I mean, I know Sean Connery was, but
he served in the army.
Yes, maybe that's why I'm getting confused. Anyway, so yes, they spot a craft which is kind of cool little, almost
It's a little
flying saucer. Well, no, it's got a tail end. You know, it's very clearly got a tail end.
But it's got a glass dome.
Got a glass with a big hole in it and no apparent door.
And then they're yelled at by fucking the wizard Tim from Monty Python Ik den Hurley and Gralian.
The heavens! There's still time!
And for a second, I thought that was James doing. Thank the heavens, there's still time!
Yes.
Oh, see my beard here, laddie!
Ah!
Ah! Yes, he does a stock scream.
It's not a Wilhelm, but...
Nah, but it's from a stock library, which... the chief recently confided in some friends of his where I could oversee in a chat that I'm in that he started to, like, at this point, he's such a proficient audio engineer that he's really starting to recognize reused stock sounds in films, and it's driving him nuts.
Oh, yeah. I can see how that would work.
Bro, Chief, I feel you. Don't worry. It only lasts about a decade, and then you just sort of chill out. So you'll get there. And yeah, Tim the Wizard, the sorcerer, he really does look like
He does look him very much. He doesn't have the skull cap, but other than that, it's a dead ringer.
Knocked himself out, gets beamed to safety. And when the crew re-arrives back on the ship, there's word from Starfleet.
Yes. Well, first, the dilithium crystals have been almost drained and they need to be realigned to repower them or something. It's not entirely clear what's going on.
Yes, that's Engineering Lieutenant Masters, who, despite being in engineering, wears a blue uniform and has no rank stripes, despite being a lieutenant.
And without full crystal power, our orbit will begin to decay in 10 hours. Yeah, little plasma vent there.
Okay, look, I don't want to be so mean-spirited as I've been before. Sort of, if we take the literal text of what they say about how, warp engines and antimatter and all that works,
yes,
we can make several different inferences.
Yes.
Right? One of them is that dilithium crystals are needed for the matter-antimatter interaction regulation.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have them, or if they can't do their job well enough, then you can't regulate higher energy reactions.
Sure.
Right? So if the crystals aren't at full power, then you just don't get to run your engine at full power because it's not going to get the reactant that it needs.
No, absolutely.
And if it doesn't get that, then maybe the magical other physics that takes place that is triggered by the matter-antimatter reaction that's still in my headcanon, Kay.
Yeah.
You haven't divorced me from it yet.
Oh, yeah. No.
Can't occur to that degree.
It's just that you don't usually need engines to maintain orbit. Once you're in a stable orbit, unless there's massive amounts of...
I was going to say, you have a powerful spaceship. You might not want,
That's actually a theory that I've been having for a long time over Star Trek, that they have so much power that they willy-nilly can use, that they just sit there in orbit burning their engines just to maintain an orbit, which is not actually would not be considered a stable orbit.
No, they have an active orbit, which is better for scanning or better coverage or has them, that's a nice one, has them in contact with the galactic plane more. I have no idea if that's useful.
Probably not, but...
orbit in a way that you get less interference with the local subspace relay, which they turn out not to need. Because after a few more chats with Spock, once again, conferring about how impossible everything is,
yes,
and that it doesn't make any sense, says Spock, but that it is very widespread and centered on this planet.
That's when the message comes from Starfleet. Code 1...
Code Factor 1.
Code Factor 1.
So severe.
Right, yes.
That the captain asks her to...
Repeat.
Code Factor 1.
And that's invasion status.
Yes. So some Commodore is saying, there's a time warp dilution, impossible radiation, everything, and it's all coming from the sector that you're in. Go figure it out.
And
am I going to get some ships? Nope.
So this is the worst kind of delegation, where you give someone a terrible problem and you don't give them the resources
to solve it.
Right?
Sounds like work.
And, well, yes, very much so. And then Kirk does the sort of other side where he accepts it. And here's where your comment comes in.
I've considered all the alternatives.
You were on that planet for 5 minutes. You met one dude. You haven't questioned him yet.
Yes.
The doc just called in to say that he was
all
conscious
the
again.
alternatives have been considered. The entire universe of alternatives have been. Yes.
We need a sound effect for your boots of conclusion jumping, Kate.
Oh, yes.
Do you have an idea? Is there anything from Star Trek that comes to mind that might be... Because I can add loads to this soundpad. Here's one that I added recently.
I'm coming, Neelix!
So we're going to wear that one from now on. So
dear.
if you have a boots of conclusion jumping,
I'll have to think of that. It's like nothing comes to mind directly. So
narrator, he was definitely going to forget.
of course he is. Yes.
But-
So more phenomenon. But finally, we get the interview with Lazarus, who actually never gets introduced. It's like he's just talking to the captain, and later, and from that moment on, they start referring to him as Lazarus.
So we're supposed to infer that there's been a pre-screening.
Oh, that makes sense. Hmm.
Because later on, that's referenced that, the planet that you told us you were from, which we never saw on screen,
Yeah.
right? That was done probably after he regained consciousness, and the captain said, "I'll talk to you later."
Okay. Now I'm going to start paying attention to this. So this is the no head injury one.
Oh,
So this is the alternate universe one.
but the way he's talking,
Yes.
no, this has to be our version. But he just doesn't have that head wound. You're right.
Okay, we'll have to see if the head wound occurs later. Because let me have a look.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Because then they beam down, and now he's got the head wound. But the way he's talking, because he's talking about.
Yeah.
He lives to destroy.
But this is the no head wound one. Then they have the
Yes, right.
they're at the ship. They have the little effect again. We see the guys fighting in the corridor in kind of like negative space, I suppose.
Do we see that? Where do we see that?
Oh, if you scroll down a little bit, there's like this.
Oh,
the
yes,
first
once
time.
they've been down to the planet.
Yes, after and then the guy comes back. Kirk is barely holding himself up because apparently everybody is getting thrown around while this is happening, and the Lazarus that then appears has the head wound,
Right. Again. Okay.
and the one with the head wound later turns out to be the insane one.
Yes. Because he's the one.
Actually, that makes sense
All right.
because from what he says earlier, it's like, oh yeah, he wants to attack and destroy. So that makes sense that he's the
Okay. Right. So the Tim the sorcerer.
yes.
Yelling on the hill. That was our insane Lazarus. He fell, hurt his head. Then off screen,
No.
he was replaced. By the time that he was on Enterprise being questioned by Kirk,
Right.
it was anti-Lazarus again.
No, I don't think there's been any. That would require a secret changeover, which we haven't seen. Which, considering that the amount of effect that it has every time they do a flip over, that makes no sense if there was a secret flip over. So my theory is that the guy who is sitting there, it's like he just went mad. He wants to destroy everything. Is the one from the other universe,
Right.
Who is going like, I don't know why. He's just suddenly started going mad with power and started attacking everything.
Yeah.
And that's the insane one who
That he's talking about.
yes.
Right. Yeah. I just don't know where this rival. I mean, in college we were friends,
Yeah.
Me and him and his girlfriend, and I was seeing her behind his back at the time, and she asked me to commit, but I never really wanted to until till she was about to get married, and by that time I kind of knew what I wanted, so I talked her into leaving him.
So yeah, they get
He's pregnant at the time, but made her get rid of that because who wants that?
destroy
really?
the universe.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, it's very confusing. And I'm sure to certain types of writers, they thought this must have been brilliant. People are going to be so excited. They're not going to know who they're watching.
Yes.
And honestly, I'm into it.
Okay.
I'm into it. This bait and switch with very limited clues that you can completely be forgiven for missing initially, and then different people in the room, especially that like when you're watching it with multiple people, different people sort of clue into it at different times, and you can have that little discussion because there's an era of television where it's kind of okay to talk through it.
Sure.
That's how it was designed to be appreciated. Not so much. I don't have so much appreciation for how Kirk treats Bones when Bones tried to convince him of exactly this. But yeah,
Bones is tooting his own horn rather loudly also.
In what way?
Oh, what does it say? It's like,
Well, as you know, we both brought Lazarus in here, and I treated a deep abrasion on his forehead, right?
Right.
Then I bandaged it. I stepped into this room for just a moment.
Bones, I've got a lot of things to do. Get to the point.
Right? It's
okay,
kinda-
so there
kinda mean.
must have been a secret changeover there that we didn't get to see.
Yes. Which
Okay.
apparently
Yeah.
didn't blink out the entire universe.
Yeah.
Or did it?
Okay.
Or people are used to it by now.
Yeah, but they keep waffling with that back and forth, whether it happens or not. Well, they seem to say that it happens because you see it several more times.
Oh, I think I know the quote that you're looking for.
As we both know, I'm a bright young medic with a miraculous touch.
Right, that's the one, yes.
Why then, when I returned, there wasn't a trace of that wound on his forehead?
Oh, come on. I think it's charming.
Oh, of course.
I think it's charming. He's fantastic. Oh, by the way, did I tell you? I've been reading a comic series called Leonard McCoy, Frontier Doctor.
Uh-huh.
And it's about...
It's that little mad woman on the prairie, but then...
No, it's him. Like, I think between the original series and the motion picture, like he's got his beard on,
Yeah.
doing a sort of Médecins Sans Frontières kind of thing. And it's got a little spaceship. There's an Andorian princess and a hot black doctor.
Nice. Yes.
And they go off and solve medical adventures and problems on their little dinky spaceship.
Cool.
It's great.
So, yes, into the rec room where apparently, yes, this dangerous man who is like, we still don't know what he is apparently allowed to roam the ship as he sees free. The Bones goes like, oh, I don't know, this is a big ship. Why should I keep an eye on him? Like,
I'm
the
just a
doctor.
simple country doctor.
I just treated him. It's like
Dialogue makes no sense. Here's some other dialogue that makes no sense. Like, this is what we overhear in the rec room.
Coffee?
Is that an order, Lieutenant?
I know what you mean.
What does that mean?
I don't know, maybe it's code talk. It's like coffee for, like, you want to have a cup of coffee. It's like, is that an order, sir?
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, the rec room, by the way, where they're not only playing 3D chess and checkers, but also 4D4 and Connect 4.
Is that where you get sort of replay moves you've done before?
I have no idea. I think that's the only thing I can make of that machine that they're sitting around when they're talking about the coffee. It's like, I have no idea what that thing does.
Why is
but
this massive machine
I can
there?
only see that it...
Oh, I wonder if it's maybe supposed to be holographic. Maybe it's a holographic version of Battleship.
Right.
Right?
Well, I think
That's a fun game.
I'm going to go with 4D Connect 4, but, it's-
Okay, where all the moves take place in the future and you have to come back? Or is it...
Yes.
Is it a...
Sure.
Is it the Schrodinger's
Absolutely.
Connect 4? Fine. Okay.
No,
I thought I was joining in.
They're all good. It's like... So, yes. Quick...
Lazarus wanders in here for no fucking reason.
No, he's been sitting there and he follows them because he hears them talking about the dilithium, isn't it?
Oh, yes, here we go.
Yeah.
Vacation finished on the dilithium crystals?
Yeah.
And then he turns around and then you go,
Dilithium.
Earperk?
Yes. On his way to the engineering, though, he has a little attack again. And
Yes.
he's been replaced with Headwound Guy once more, which leads to Kirk rather doubting Bones' story.
Yep.
I have a ship's physician with a strange sense of humor.
Boo.
Damn it, Kirk, I'm a doctor, not a liar.
Yep.
No, but this is no joke, Jim. I know what I saw.
And
Bones, if I had time, I'd laugh.
boo.
Yes.
It's really kind of critical and mean-spirited. I mean, the crew isn't that unprofessional. You didn't
I
expect
guess
that
not.
kind of poor professionalism from them.
Unless they start playing pranks on each other with joke glasses and pastries coming out of the replicator.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. And he takes his irritation out on Spock as well.
Yes. Now I remember what I was talking about earlier before we
yes.
got distracted. Why is it all... That's why I started talking about Spock's rank. It's like, why is it always Mr. Spock and not never Lieutenant Spock or rank? Most every people are addressed by their rank or just by their first name or by their surname, but it's always Mr. Spock.
Mr. Sulu, Mr. Chekhov. I think every officer can be
right.
addressed as...
Yes.
I'm not arguing. I'm just trying to think out loud. Because famously, even Lieutenant Savik in The Wrath of Khan is addressed as Mr. Savik.
Okay.
Despite clearly presenting as female and using she, her pronouns.
Huh.
That Mr. is just...
Might just be, just general term. Like, polite version of hey you.
Yeah, I don't know if it applies to like non-officer ranks or if you can say it to someone who's higher ranking than you.
Open hey you frequencies.
Okay.
What's that from again?
From you. It's the only place I've heard it from.
I'm pretty sure I have it from a book, but...
Another riddle.
Good one.
Hey.
So, yes, sudden blinken lichten on the planet's surface.
How is it the scanners didn't pick it up before?
'Cause it is not there.
Another riddle. First Dr. McCoy, then you.
Yes, it's
and
just
Kirk goes,
blinking.
what?
Yeah.
And Spock, being very cool, says...
I confess I am somewhat at a loss for words.
He has such excellent lines in this episode and delivers them so well.
I love that next bit. It's like, it might be described, though loosely and inaccurately, as...
as a rip in our universe, thereby setting the tone for what will continue in this episode, like light supposition immediately being taken as fact and extrapolated upon.
Yes.
to a great degree.
A kind of physical warp, Captain, in which none of our established physical laws apply with any regularity. However, with the dilithium crystals, I was able to localize it.
It's right there. You can see it blinking on the screen. What do you mean that you need the dilithium crystals to localize it?
Okay, so I sort of feel like I've watched this several times because I've been going back and forth in the Jeeps while I was taking my notes. And so what Spock is saying, he's found radiation being emitted from a location, but in that location, there is no source.
Yes.
So the source has to be somewhere for that radiation to be coming from it.
Right.
But it's not in that location. So, as we find out, it's extra dimensional, extra universal. And so presumably he needed dilithium to locate, to find the actual location outside the universe. Like, which universe does it need to connect to? Maybe.
Headcanon accepted. It's like,
I mean, it still doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like,
no,
why are they
You
constantly...
need the dilithium crystals to sense the, to maintain the warp. Maybe that's what they use the dilithium crystals for, to run the antimatter power through and then use it to align the warp field. And in this case, if it's like kind of like a natural occurring warp, then you can use the dilithium crystals, kind of like, like a radio transmitter, like a theremin. Like you take out the, you use the dilithium crystals to generate like a warp bubble without taking the ship actually into warp, and then measuring the effects that this phenomenon has on the warp field.
Okay, look at you go. That's
there
awesome.
You go.
I love it. I really do.
I can invent taco Marvel if I need to.
Give me the crystals.
Give me the crystals.
Give me the crystals.
Give me the crystals.
No.
Just give me the prize.
You fool.
And he runs off. No, I'm going to get my own crystals, my own party with dilithium crystals and hookers.
Yeah.
There's another swap over, and he goes over to what is presumably a corner of engineering.
Yes, a brand new set, and this is the recrystallization or crystal recharging station.
Right, I guess that's where they, realign the dilithium crystals. He takes out one ensign first, and then the lieutenant.
Yeah. And it's kind of a creepy move.
It is a bit. I don't know, he has some sort of applicator, I think, so he's probably just
is that what he's got?
I think that's just like it's meant to be a hypo spray or something that he probably nicked from Bones.
Yep. But the attack is overheard because Lieutenant Masters
has the comms open.
Yeah.
Captain, the chamber will be ready in 10 minutes, sir. My assistant and I will... Captain!
Lieutenant.
And at this point, we have to point out, Lieutenant Masters is a black woman.
Yes.
On 1960s television, and she has an assistant.
Oh, yes. Very good point.
She's a department head.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Awesome to see.
What was it again? Whoopi Goldberg? Mom, there's a black lady on television and she ain't no maid.
Hell yeah. This one's for you, Whoopi. Although I think she hadn't chosen her stage name yet at the time. I forget what her birth name was.
No, I have no idea, to be honest.
Okay, and now it's time for...
You said you needed the crystals. Fact. An hour after fact, 2 of my crewmen were... Fact, Captain. You fact. Fact. 2 of my... Fact, Captain. Fact. Fact, Captain. Fact.
Yeah, go on.
He is the original Karen, It's like...
Fact.
Sorry.
He's the original Karen screaming on Facebook, just because you make up some sort of thing and then you say fact behind it doesn't actually make it so. It's not.
No, bless. Oh. I think that takes the archetype of the Karen a bit too far. And also, Karen is just somebody's name, and I try not to use that term, but it is. I have literally had someone use this phrase at me in a conversation that I promptly ended because they expressed that something was a cold, hard Christian fact.
Oh, wow.
Just, with great love to my Christian siblings across the world. There's just there's a poetic beauty to that.
Fact, Captain. I didn't take the crystals. Not the one. Find my enemy. Find the beast. And you'll find the crystals.
It starts to become more and more clear that there's 2 of them. To be honest, in all fairness, and I can honestly say that I would have almost from the first moment on, was like, okay, there's going to be 2 of them. They're going to be brothers, or there's going to be something along those lines. Yes, it's like totally. It was very heavily telegraphed, even in the very first scene.
I want every inch of this terrain checked. Look for footprint movement, anything.
Yep,
every
inch.
If
you spot anything, don't be afraid to use your weapons.
What the fuck?
Yep.
What has given you Have you given any specific reasons? Like, it's
Well,
just
2 crew members were attacked. Dilithium crystals have been stolen. This seems like the situation has escalated.
okay. Yeah, no, that would be fair if it was consistent with some other things that we're about to notice. Like, we do see the dilithium recrystallization room again, and there is no additional security there.
Nope.
So no additional security there, but to the security that he has assigned to other tasks. Investigate this planet and blast anything you see.
Just a quick little interruption here from Chief Engineer Greg. So this weekend, Saturday, September 28th at noon Pacific time, I'm going to be streaming for American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, playing Alien Isolation, and getting the pants scared off of me because I am terrible at these games. Every year I try to raise some money for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. It's a cause very near and dear to my heart. If you're at all interested in coming by and watching, the link is in the description here. If you're able to donate, that's fantastic. If not, just a little bit of support while I'm there is also appreciated. Thank you so much for listening. Back to the episode.
We see Tim the Space Wizard struggling along the lines, and again there is more spacey, wacy, timey effects. It's like like this little blue phone box comes zooming past in the And for the second or the third time, he falls down that same bluff.
Oh yeah, good point. He's a tumbly boy.
He is making a habit of it.
And at this point, I thought, oh, maybe it's anti-Tim.
Well,
so he's going to also wind up with a head wound
to
confuse
right,
it. But no, it's just unlucky. Crazy Tim from our universe.
Yes.
Who does himself another heady. He does warn the captain for a rock that he loosened.
Yes.
Before he tumbles down to his doom.
I believe I said that's what happens if you turn on your anti-gravity unit in Worm Country while we were watching this.
Oh, and now I'm just thinking about one of the opening shots of Dune Part 2.
Yes, the Sardaukar. No, sorry, not the Harkonnen who are floating up that big bluff.
And just pushing themselves along.
Fantastic shot.
You know how it feels. It's that perfect pace. And the last one, he sort of pushes himself up twice more, and then he turns his body and lands. And oh, wow. You know what it feels like.
I can sure imagine it. It's kind of like, I think the best thing to compare it to is kind of like propelling yourself underwater in a swimming pool.
Exactly that.
Kind of like giving light touches to keep yourself moving in the direction that you want to go.
Yep, because your weight's being taken care of. I'm reminded of the Uplifted Dolphins in David Brin's... Is that the right word?
Yes, I think it's Brin, yeah.
Brin's Uplift novels, where they talk about the spacer dolphins who fly on spaceships because they're excellent 3D navigators, way better than humans because they do it all the time.
Yeah.
That in their language, they don't really have terms for weight. That's not what they deal with. They deal with buoyancy, drag, center of mass, inertia. All those terms are way more important than weight.
Yeah.
So we have another, hey, are you also deeply uninterested in discussing the details of the questioning scenes with Lazarus?
Oh, totally.
Right? Because even as I was watching it, I sort of stopped taking notes and
it's a little bit boring, to be honest.
I think I'm into the beard, though. It's not for everyone, and not everyone can pull it off.
It's a distinguished beard. Well, it tries to be one. So I read a little something about that. So the
about
actor,
the beard?
Well, specifically, part of it, kind of relationally connected. So the actor who was originally going to play Lazarus walked off the set after
John Drew Barrymore.
Yes.
I was just about to launch the exact same trivia. Okay, very well done.
So go on then. You can probably tell the story better than I can.
Oh, shall we do the thing where I say, no, you tell it. And then every time that you mention something vaguely, I immediately interject.
Exactly.
Should we do that?
No, let's not do that.
No, that, right?
Go ahead. Come on.
Okay, so either he didn't show up for the first day of filming, which some reports say. Other reports say that he went to lunch and just didn't come back.
Yep.
And the director, and the director sort of tried to fill in by shooting non-Lazarus scenes for the remainder of the day. And by the start of the next day, they still hadn't heard from him, and he just didn't show up. So they had the choice, do we quit or do we try and make this? And, I think William Shatner had a friend.
Oh, okay, Mr. Brown.
Yes, exactly. Chief, what was his name?
Yes, so the actor is Robert Brown, friend of William Shatner, who was just hired on the spot when Shatner dragged him in. And coincidentally, his first day of filming was also his 40th birthday.
thank you, who was nearby enough that he was able to show up. He got the script and the job on the spot.
Yep. And the beard.
And the beard, well... Oh, wait, is that your headcanon? That there was a much better beard that John Drew Barrymore, father of Drew Barrymore, by the way.
Right, okay, I was wondering.
Just took home with him
Yeah, I
and
guess
never
so,
returned. And it was
probably.
too expensive to replace. Oh, my God.
So they kind of went with, like, Khan wouldn't have been there yet. So, but yes,
Do you know?
they kind of glued some hair on that they had lying about.
Space Seed had already taken place at this point. In an earlier draft of this script,
Uh-huh.
Lieutenant Masters was supposed to fall in love with this diabolical madman.
Uh-huh.
And that became a side plot. And then Gene Roddenberry actually sort of spoke up. Hey, we've had an awful lot of plots where officers on the ship fall in love with the bad guy. Because the
Right.
same thing happened in Space Seed.
Right, yes.
Right? A female officer fell in love and was torn between love and duty. Can we just have professional officers for a little bit, please?
Yes, like stick to your duty. So
Yeah.
Lazarus calls himself a time traveler, which is in fact not what he's doing.
I am a time traveler.
And this thing you search for is a time traveler, too?
I mean, it's a bit of everything, right? So they're both time travelers and space travelers and universe hoppers, and they're both sort of hiding various facts about themselves that we don't see them sharing.
Even though one universe is apparently antimatter, and even though you come there as regular matter, not everything explodes. It only happens when identical particles meet. It's not pretty sure that's not how macro matter-antimatter reactions work. But
No. So this is one of those conference scenes where only Kirk and Spock are there, which is a real shame,
Yeah.
because some other voice would be great. And it starts off really great. This conference scene is, what's it called? A synecdoche for how I appreciate the entire episode, because it starts off really, really good. They go through the facts that they have.
True, Captain. But more significant to me is the fact that our ship's instruments are specifically designed to locate and identify any object in our universe, be it energy or matter.
Right? And
Yeah.
then it leads to one conclusion, that the source of the radiation...
Source of radiation is not from our universe.
Nor in our universe, Captain.
That's great. Then they talk about, you know what?
Yeah.
The idea of other universes, perhaps even other dimensions. Okay, that one's a little bit weird. Has been theorized, and I'm sitting there, yeah. Are we
Go
gonna,
on then, yeah.
Like, there's multiverses were just, it was pretty fresh in the 1960s
totally.
as a concept. Occupying the same space and the same time. Yeah, that's how it works. Parallel universe has been concealed. And then there's this awesome camera move around Kirk, which goes from him being regularly lit to turning around and then having light shining in his face.
those lamps are doing a lot of work in this episode, because I noticed a very similar shot with Lazarus right at the beginning, where he's sitting there like getting just his eyes lit up.
It's a dramatic device that's fallen out of favor. I miss it. I kind of love it. And now...
What would happen if another universe, say a minus universe,
no.
came into contact with a positive universe?
Okay, that's a lot of assumptions.
Oh, yes.
Whew. And then they go, well, there would be a warp.
Warp.
Couldn't it be described as a whole? Oh, that's exactly what we have. What
do you know? We've worked it out. We've theorized our way out of this problem.
You know what you're saying?
Yeah.
Matter and matter have a tendency to cancel each other. No, it's not a tendency. It's kind of like what they do. It's not a tendency. It's just like it's not just whenever they feel like it, they kind of like do that. It's
So let's assume that when he uses antimatter here, maybe he wants to say minus matter.
right. Sure.
Some kind of antithesis. Because what we're led to believe is that it's not a problem if matter from our universe and that universe interact. It's only a problem if the same particles interact with one another. And that's not just... Like, that doesn't just annihilate those particles, but the entire universe that they're from.
But that's, usually
That's not how antimatter works.
No.
Let's just say that they took the term wrong.
Right, it's only on the macro. I mean, antimatter works on any scale. It doesn't have to be any particular proton. It just has to be a proton.
Right.
And an antiproton, and not a whole antiproton-based human being. But has to meet the exact same opponent from the other universe. But, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
It's
cool
kind of like the time
concept.
traveler's paradox, like what happens if you run into yourself,
Why? What does happen?
I don't know. Depends on what the plot needs.
Yeah.
So there is a box which says warning high voltage, which has some gears behind it. It looks like a bloody Lego set. No.
Yes, and And Lazarus pulls out his pocket kerchief,
Yes.
which everyone still had back then.
Which he uses to pull a few fuses, which just shows that, like, any machine is a smoke machine if you operate it wrong enough. This draws the attention of the lieutenant and her assistant, who start fighting the battle with the fire. I love the firefighters' uniforms. Uniforms, by the way, they have the whole proper metallic covering to radiate off to reflect any radiating heat.
Is that what it's for?
Yeah. So you see it in foundry workers as well. It's basically a reflective
mirror.
suit. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's just like it's best way to get to not have that infrared radiation be absorbed by your body or the clothes that you're wearing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you notice also how Lieutenant Masters is the heroic one who wants to stay at her station?
Yes.
And the subordinate has to drag her away. You too, Lieutenant. It could blow any time. It's just like, no, my buttons. And she's the one who, despite being carried away, she runs up to the control panel to inform the bridge. She knows her duties, that officer.
I think I finally figured out what Uhura's problem is. Like why she's always leaning forward like that. She's just desperate, like that nobody else touches her buttons. That's the way she's like kind of like hogging the console. No, this is mine. This is mine.
Because even though it was like super egalitarian for the 60s, it's still like
my fucking console. Keep your dirty paws off this.
I mean, they're living among like 80% mansplainers,
yes.
and just a few more men than that, and like everyone's constantly, are you sure that you can handle it there, little missy? Off! I have one job. And you're going to fuck it up. Also that.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. And yes. Just apparently everyone on the bridge can just call up Scotty when he's not doing anything and just ask for modifications like, yeah, can I have a few more buttons? Yeah, I want to kind of eliminate that whole department, the translation department. They're not really doing anything. Just, I don't know, rotate them back out, ship them their clothes when they're done. Just give me some extra buttons.
Yes. Lazarus knocks out the transporter chief on duty.
Sir, you shouldn't be in here.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, who says you shouldn't be here? And it goes, oh, I didn't knee you in the crotch.
Yes. And goes back to the ship where Kirk catches up with him. And now for the first time, it is Kirk. Or is it Lazarus or Kirk who gets... It's Kirk who gets jumped into the other universe.
Yes, because with these freshly stolen dilithium crystals,
yes,
which is what this Lazarus...
It's the second set of dilithium crystals that have been stolen.
Exactly.
Yes. And you can see them sitting there in his ship. And to me, the first thought is like they used a couple of wooden cutting boards. That's what it really looks like.
They're sort of amber when you actually see them.
Yeah, I know.
There's lights glowing through them.
When they light up, then they glow from the inside.
But the shape of them is definitely
it's just
cutting
like
board
a wooden
shape.
cutting board, yeah.
So what we're supposed to infer from this is that the anti-sorcerer Tim took the other two to his universe to power his ship.
Yes.
For...
No, he didn't want regular Tim to have them because regular Tim would use them to try to come over to his universe and then meet him. Because that's what he's saying. Like he's been controlling the shifts. And it's like regular Tim...
Anti-Tim's been controlling the shifts this whole time.
Yes. That's what the impression I got. Because like Anti-Tim says like, well, if you can come over on his terms... then he can meet me. We don't meet in the corridor, and then we meet here, and then we die.
Anti-Tim has been taken over several times, though.
Yeah.
When he was on the Enterprise, and he was suddenly
Fair
just
enough.
accosted.
Maybe that's because Tim was then working the controls of Anti-Tim's ship.
Oh, wait, hold on. There was something about, like, the ship needing to recharge.
Yes, that too.
Okay, here. I think maybe you've solved it.
Mm-hmm.
The only working universe-shifting device is in Anti-Tim's spaceship.
Right, yes.
In the other universe.
Yeah, probably. Until Tim gets the dilithium crystals for...
Right. And so Anti-Tim has been making journeys into this universe to stop Lazarus, or regular Tim,
right, but they get flipped and they meet in the corridor. And
every time he does that, regular Tim winds up in the anti-universe with a working spaceship. Yes. So eventually, after a recharge, he can seize it back again.
Yeah.
There are better plans, Anti-Tim.
Anti-Tim, finally, he seems to be much more reasonable here and like also willing to talk about it.
And if identical particles meet...
The end of everything. Civilization, existence, all gone.
Yep. And he's talking about, like, he grew up on this planet a long time ago, as did Lazarus, and they realized that there was a naturally occurring warp here between the two universes, which is kind of cool. right?
I love, by the way, how Kirk is leaning up to that spaceship with this kind of look, like, "Hey, come here often," kind of look. It's like,
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is kind of a have you picked someone for the dance?
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of a vibe, yeah. Oh, did you see earlier in the conference scene? I only talked about how he got the beauty light in his eyes.
Uh-huh.
After that, the scene goes on, and you get back and forth close-ups between Kirk and Spock, and like zooming in closer and closer. And then the Vaseline gets on the lens. Things are spicing up. Oh, okay. Do you know how lots of people are like into Kirk and Spock,
Sure,
right? As
yeah.
a romantic pairing, and it's
Yeah.
mostly women. Lesbian Star Trek Twitter, which is awesome. It's my favorite Star
Sure,
Trek Twitter.
yeah.
There's so many that are so into Spurk.
Yes.
And I don't know why it's lesbians specifically and bisexual women. I mean, I love it. I'd love to know. I celebrate this. I think it's so wonderful. But yeah, okay. So he's got his eye on somebody else in this case. Do you notice how Auntie Tim's spaceship doesn't have the dome?
It's over on the side.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah. It kind of has the because regular Tim has the dome but not the cutout part, and and anti-Tim has the cutout part but not the dome, although the dome is off to the side on the ground.
Okay.
So yeah, long discussion about like how things are going to work, but
Yeah, fine. Just these conversations between Kirk and any kind of Lazarus
Yeah.
are just not. They're just not as interesting as the episode
no,
conceptually.
not particularly. No.
So here comes a really long clip. Chief, play it.
Exactly what did I pass through?
It's hard to explain, Captain. I call it an alternative warp, sort of a negative magnetic corridor where the two parallel universes meet, sort of a safety valve. Keeps eternity from blowing up.
This corridor, is it what caused the magnetic effect? The winking out phenomenon?
Precisely, Captain. But not because of his existence, because my foe entered. The corridor is like a prison, with explosives at the door. Open the door, and the explosives might go off. Stay inside.
And the universe is safe.
And we have Chief to blame for having to sit through all that. Thanks, Chief.
Chief. No, wait.
Thief.
Thief. No, wait, that doesn't
No.
work. Shanks. Well, that also doesn't work.
And if you're confused about this, just watch Look Around You. It's a fantastic British television program.
But they concoct a plan, and yes, Kirk is going to get turfed back to his own universe.
What is the plan, Kay?
Okay, the plan is Kirk is going to go back to his own universe,
Yep.
chuck Tim through the portal, the tunnel,
Which Tim was already planning to do.
right, but on his own terms, and Anti-Tim will be waiting in the tunnel for him. So after Anti-Tim sends Kirk back, Tim is going to going into the conduit, into the tunnel, whatever you want to call it. And once regular Tim is thrown in by Kirk is going to destroy the ship, and thereby trapping the two of them in the tunnel forever
Yeah.
and keeping the universe safe.
And who's going to destroy the other ship? Okay. And also, why does anyway inconvenience Tim to be thrust in now instead of 5 minutes later? I mean, if Anti-Tim knows that he's coming,
I don't know. I mean,
why does it have to be now?
That's what he literally says. He'll be ready, and I guess Anti-Tim says, "I'll be ready for it," and he'll be waiting.
And why does Captain Kirk walk up to regular
Tim?
insane Tim
Oh yes,
in front of like two security personnel
yes.
and yell to them?
Have
Order them
this
to stand back.
this Vulcan who is 3 times as strong as a human being, grab him
Just knock him out.
and throw him through. No, we just get a
Because what's the grappling for? The grappling for is to get him into the ship.
Yes. It's just like Kirk needs to get a little bit of fight. Like, I mean, I'm surprised
Then
he
why
managed,
does he take his
surprised he
shirt
manages
off?
to keep
Yes,
his shirt on.
exactly.
You know, it's
So he tosses Tim into the craft, where he freezes with a little bit of motion blur. I noticed
Yes.
that. Yeah, right. And vanishes. And he says, "Well, job done."
Destroy that ship completely.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
problem solved. They fire the phasers. They blow the ship out of the surface of the planet, and they do a little bit of. But what of Lazarus? But what of Lazarus? But what of
Yes.
Lazarus?
Yeah, yeah. But Kirk does reflect on the horrific fate that someone
Yes,
is now.
they're condemned to each other for all of eternity.
Yeah, and now
Yeah.
we're living just in a universe where that's happened.
Yeah.
And then, like we so often do, when we've enjoyed an evening with friends and it's getting a wee bit late, we go, well,
All right, Mr. Leslie, let's get out of here.
Like, job done.
Yes.
This is just so casual. All right, Mr. Leslie.
You still have that course for Starbase 200 locked in? Yep, go for it.
Oh, off we go.
Hit it on.
Oh, yeah, I have a sound effect for that. Here we go. Whew. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Yes.
Who did you think in this wild episode was
So fucking cool.
Oh, I was going to say, no, that's going to be yours, so I'm not going to say that one.
Oh, really?
Let's see. Who did I think was so fucking cool? I mean, I did. Okay, I think the little spaceship was the coolest thing that
The little spaceship was so
was the
cool.
coolest thing. It's absolutely entirely superfluous, partly because they're both from this planet, whereas there's no trace of the civilization that they're both from.
No, but there's a time ship, but you don't need a time ship to travel to the future.
I know, right? Or to a different universe. It's like
Also that.
ship,
I have
but
no
besides,
idea.
why wasn't the ship there before? How does it suddenly appear? Where did it come from? But it's like it was such a cool little ship. I love the little flying saucer with the little jets and like the veins at the back. It's like
Yes!
it just needed a chrome trim. It would have been perfect.
Oh, mine is Lieutenant Masters.
I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew
Okay.
it.
I mean, it's almost. It almost doesn't feel excellent to point out, oh, she's a woman of color and she gets to be in charge and seems so responsible. But like in 1967, like having roles like that for African American actors,
Oh yeah, totally.
that was real tough. And to have these available on a show like this, see, there's a lot of people who sort of misappropriate the idea that Star Trek has always been inclusive, and some people in bad faith use that to mean, oh, the level of inclusivity in the 1960s was just perfect.
Oh, right. Yes.
Right? And it was just fine, and that's exactly right. And, like, not to, like, put any arrows in their quiver, but this was genuinely excellent, just having good roles for women of color. Now, having a few lines for George Takei would have been also nice. We like to see him in the front of the ship.
But he was not, not appearing in this episode.
Yeah, or James Doohan.
Yeah. Maybe they had a side gig, maybe.
Well, if you want to hypothesize, do you maybe have a
Captain's log, supplemental.
You imagine that there are any deleted scenes from this episode?
Well, at first I thought it was going to be like when he goes for the high voltage thing that he put.
Danger!
It's kind of
High voltage!
Pulls a tribble out of his pocket and like throws it in there and then closes the hatch again.
Ooh, that's hazardous.
But no, mine will probably have to go to the scene that they filmed. So it's actually the very last scene in the episode. When you can see that the bridge crew returns, you see them walking onto the bridge. The guy who's sitting in the captain's chair gets up, moves over to the ops console. The guy who's sitting at the ops console has to get up and walk away, and you get this entire game of musical chairs that they start playing on the bridge, where basically everybody reshuffles and.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I saw a great bit of trivia, which shows just how pedantic and how attentive Star Trek fans are when they're pointing out that, like, Mr. Leslie, like, is sitting here at, I think it's the astrogation of the ops station.
Yeah.
And he has 2 stripes on his sleeve.
Oh, yeah.
But it's sitting in, and he's in command because his uniform's gold. But when we cut to the bridge at one point, we see the other red uniformed officer with a single stripe on his sleeve sitting in the chair.
Right.
Holding that warmth to the captain. Like, how does that make sense? I don't know.
Maybe he's the chair warmer. It's like...
Well, that's a nice job. I could do that.
Yeah.
Certainly in this heat. Okay, let's see. What's my...
Captain's log, supplemental.
I wonder if there's a version of this. A parallel universe. Perhaps a minus universe where John Drew Barrymore didn't just leave. Where, by the way, like the producers complained to the I think the Screen Actors Guild or whatever there was beforehand, and he got suspended for 6 months. Where he just for this because he couldn't work anymore.
I mean, it's fair, It's like if you just like up and go without like as much as a buy your leave, or just disappear.
Contract renegotiation or any kind of.
That's very unprofessional.
Exactly. But imagine if he had finished it, and imagine if he continued that day with the excellent beard. And, the director had an extra day and didn't have to sort of panic. And they might have realized, like, the word fact is in this episode an awful lot. By the way, Chief, cut them all together here.
I want facts, not poetry.
I have given you the facts, Captain. I have been able to ascertain one fact.
We don't have any other facts.
Fact, fact, Fact. 2 of my crewmen were attacked. Fact, Captain.
I distorted a fact in the interest of self-preservation.
But more significant to me is the fact that our ship's instruments...
The fact that it meant his own destruction.
Phenomenon.
And all the phenomenons, please.
Pulsation phenomenon began to subside.
Be connected with the phenomenon.
Whatever that phenomenon was.
Are these natural phenomena?
First, the phenomenon came from the planet below.
Which seems to be the source of the phenomenon which has struck the Enterprise.
I can no more explain the occurrence of the second phenomenon than I can the first. Captain, I only know for certain that the occurrence of the phenomenon...
We are no closer to finding an answer to the strange phenomenon.
Produces a winking out phenomenon.
Winking out phenomenon?
Oh, by the way, they used phenomenon and phenomena correctly.
Oh, nice.
I'm always very impressed. Phenomenon is the singular, phenomena the plural.
Oh, yeah.
That's a tricky thing to get right
Yes.
in Star Trek. But imagine if it was excellent, right?
Yeah.
A more intriguing performance. Maybe even they had more opportunity to reflect. James Doohan and George Takei were available as well. And I don't mean to damn it with faint praise, because Kaleb, everything that you said about this episode is totally true. But it's so close to being an even more excellent episode because it's terrifying.
Yes. If you think about it, it is quite horrific.
And so much about it is just a woof, swing and a miss, and so you can sort of miss out on that. But yeah, this is a great contribution to Star Trek.
What of Lazarus?
What of Lazarus?
And that's why he says it twice, because there's 2 of them.
Oh my God, yes, you're right. But he only cares about one. And he goes, welp.
Leslie, let's get out of here.
Which, if we hadn't already settled on I'm leaving Starfleet.
Yes, that would be a great
that
exit.
would be a
Yes.
great one.
So, what do we have next week?
Next time on an all-new episode of Star Trek.
All of it. Yes. Okay. A new tradition is born. Almost certain to forget about it immediately.
Oh, you have to announce these things, and we'll see which sticks.
Right.
I mean, I've had a few of these things when because we record this episode and I don't listen to it again until it actually airs.
Yes.
And then sometimes I'm reminded by myself. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that we said that at that point, and kind of forgot about that. Let's see if we can bring it back. Yes. Do it now.
Like that one time that you remember to do the gestures that we talked about once,
yes.
like to get each other to shut up, which listeners at home may have noticed. We sort of forgot about doing the gestures. And this is not really our thing. But so other listeners, much like Kaleb, thank you very much, have sent in really excellent recommendations that we don't get to see. And it's such a treat because our chief goes through them, tries to pick new voices. We like diverse voices. And we like people who select episodes that they love more than most people. And that can be you. If you haven't sent in a recommendation yet, maybe now's the time. Go to joyoftrek.com/links. You'll find a form there. It's really easy to fill out. But by the way, some people have asked this. It's only text. If the chief eventually winds up selecting one of your episodes, you'll be invited. You'll be given the opportunity to record it yourself. If you don't want to do that, yeah, totally fine. Then we record it. So we just want to hear from you because we love you all. Now let's see what got recommended to us this time.
It's scientifically impossible for there to be nothing out there. There's definitely something. We just have to assume it's not registering on any of our sensors.
Is it night again?
Okay. First guess is going to be that episode where the Enterprise gets drawn into this weird pocket universe with this face alien entity.
Oh, Nagilum.
I think that's
with the really weird face entity.
Yeah, that's going to be my first guess. But because that's when there's...
Oh, maybe my guess is going to be the one with a shrinking universe.
Oh, yes. That's possible, too.
Let's see. Let's see what else.
In reviewing Starfleet records of similar encounters, it appears we can anticipate some interference. Enterprise noted heated plasma. Voyager charted ionized particle eddies.
Oh. Whoa. Okay, so neither Enterprise nor Voyager.
And it's post-Voyager, then. So that makes... Okay, so
that's got to be the modern era of Trek.
Well, so that makes it's going to be lower decks or Prodigy?
Or the latter seasons of Discovery.
Possible.
Yeah.
But hang on. Discovery's Discovery's pre-Voyager.
The first 2 seasons. And then the last 3 seasons take place in the 32nd century.
Right. Oh, yes.
So let's see.
Trill game that Guardians teach hosts when they first join to help with sensory confusion.
Yes. This is Discovery, K. You don't stand a chance because you haven't seen this far in.
Yeah.
I think that's about Gray. He's the first openly trans actor and character to appear on Star Trek. His boyfriend or his partner, he is the boyfriend of. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay, yes.
The first non-binary character and actor in Star Trek. This is very exciting.
Since arriving in this rift, I've stopped receiving external sensor input.
Yeah, okay, so more clues incoming.
Commander Bryce, open a shipwide channel, please. All personnel, prepare to transport into the pattern buffer.
Oh, I'm so excited about this. Oh, I know which episode it is.
All right.
Stormy weather.
Very good.
The episode is Discovery 406, Stormy.
Yes! Oh my God. This is going to be so much fun, Kay. It's going to be a whole new century. You have so much fun ahead of you.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.
Everybody at home, thank you so much for joining us once again. And I think we have just one more thing.
I'm coming, Nana.
Energize.
We're not going to make that a regular thing, are we?
I don't know. Sorry, no. I'll do the serious one. I'll do the.
I'm leaving Starfleet.
Energize.
Oh, it still cheers me up every time.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode with your friends Kay and Kaki. Production, editing by your chief engineer Greg, and music by Fox Amore. Join us next time for Stormy Weather, Discovery 406. Visit joyoftrek.com/links to send us your recommendations, support us on Patreon, or to find us on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening to The Joy of Trek, and we'll see you out there.